You and your squeaky chairs, one. You're the newbie, sit on it.
So we are live. Kia ora, everybody. So wonderful to have the team from Okaha here to present to us and to bring us up to speed as where we're at with the cultural narrative for the facility that's being built down by Lake Dunstan in the Culture and Heritage Precinct of Cromwell. It is exciting that we're sharing this as a public workshop today. So welcome.
Kia ora, thanks Anna, and I might even just pick up before the team jump on as well, and we'll just do a quick introduction to everybody around the table here. So just sort of name and I guess your role at council, starting with you, Mike.
Cool. Ko Tararua ngā manga, ko Rua Mahanga Te Awa, ko Takatimu Te Waka, ko Noa Wairarapa Ahau, ko Mike Casey Tokuinga, ko Ngāti Kahanunu Te Iwi. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Kia ora. Ka pai, Mike.
Kia ora, guys. Back again. Sarah Brown, Community Board Council again for another term.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, I'm Sarah. I work in governance. We met before. It's nice to be back.
The Koutou, Anna Harrison. I'm the Cromwell Community Board Chair.
Kia ora, ko David Scoons, toka ingoa. My role here is the GM of Community Experience at CIDC. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Like Sanford on the Cromwell Community Board.
Kia ora, Rebecca Anderson, Cromwell Community Board.
Kia ora, Julie Crystal, with me.
And you probably can't see, but we've got a few other staff and a member from the Museum Trust here as well. And we've got Rebecca here from our community engagement team, Louise and QP in the room. And we may have a couple of other people jumping online. And kia ora to the public who are joining us as well. And just before I do hand over, this cultural narrative has been worked and weaved throughout the build of the lake. And I guess council have been working with Okaha and partners since about 2013 on this as we've worked towards the build. And it's an absolute privilege today to be able to share this with the public to understand and further learn about the stories of the area as well. So kia ora to you, and we'll hand over to Paulette, Danny and Aroha.
Kia ora, David. Thank you, everyone, for that introduction and mihi. Paulette, do you want to start?
O tēnā tātou, tātou kua whakarauika mai I runga I tēnei kaupapa whakahirahira I tēnei rangi. Nei te reo o kaitahu whānui e mihi atu ana. Kia tātou katoa. So just, my greetings online to all of you who have gathered today. What an incredible opportunity it's been to work in partnership with you all and helping to shape and contribute to this wonderful community facility. Shall I just keep going? I don't know, I'm looking for some direction. Kapai, yeah. So just talk a little about the name of the project, and I think Aroha and Danny will share a little bit of insight about how Okaha works along the way as well. But the name of this project we called Mano Takata. Now, mano is a word that can mean multitudes, thousands, and takata is, of course, our Kaito dialect for the word tangata, which is people. So this is a project that spans across many generations, inclusive of many people. And so the inspiration there, he toa taki tini, he toa taki, strength comes from many. And it's drawn from a traditional proverbial saying. One of our ancestors, we have our own migration histories into the South Island. So just acknowledging our whanaukā from Kahungunu. Our people, earlier people migrated straight out of the Wairarapa into Te Waipounamu, amalgamating with the earlier occupiers who were from Kāti Māmoe and Waitaha. But so one of our eponymous ancestors coming into the South Island while they were sort of positioning and sorting out their place in the world, gave a rallying cry to inspire his people, and he said, "Ko te toa ia tini ia mano." And it really was about that strength comes from the many of us, the many generations that we represent today. So it's quite a fitting name for the project. And, you know, talking about migration histories for when we look at this beautiful part of Te Waiponamu of the South Island, it has layers and layers of history right through to today, and will continue to have for future generations. So, maere tonu.
Kia ora. Danny is just going to step in here and talk a little bit about Ōkaha and who we are.
Kia ora koutou, tēnā koe Paulette. Ko Danny Takuikoa, I'm the Communications Manager at Ōkaha. And we thought we'd just give you a brief rundown on what we do, because we're quite varied in our deliveries. But Ōkaha started out in 1997 as Kaitahu Ki Otago, and we did that in response to the Resource Management Act. So we established a PO, or a department, to respond to the resource management and environmental management. We're owned by 5 runaka, so from Waimate, and Te Raurango Waihao, Moeraki, Puketeraki and Karitane, Otako and Hokonui. From 1997, when we first opened, we grew, and in about 2015 we saw an opportunity to build employment with our rakatahi. So we set up Mana Takata, and Mana Takata today focuses on employment, healthy homes and driver licensing. But we also, from there, we also established Mana Ahurea, which delivers cultural design integration. So our aim, as it says here, is to provide a range of services for mana whenua for the benefit of our communities. So here is our organisational overview, as we've got our Papa Te Purunaka shareholders at the top. And we have one representative from each runaka that is on our board of directors, including 2 independents. And then we have our PO, or departments, Mana Taiao, Mana Takata and Mana Ahurea, which Paulette governs on and Aroha works for. And all of our work is guided by mana whenua across our PO, and then we have our clients, partners and funders. So I'll hand over back to Aroha to talk about how Mana Ahurea works.
Kia ora koutou, ko Aroha Novak Takuingoa, kei te mahi o ki Ōkaha. I work at Ōkaha as a design lead for Mana Ahurea, which is the PO where we embed cultural narratives into design projects and architectural buildings and urban development, and all kinds of amazing things and opportunities. And so this is just a flow chart of how we do that. It's always confused me a little bit, but basically we are the one in the middle. That's me, and I'm in that middle bit. And so you guys, CODC, are the client, and then we also work in collaboration or co-design with architectural firms. So we're working in co-design with JazzMax on this particular project, and then there's us in the middle, and then we have our mana whenua working groups or panel. So Paulette is one of our mana whenua representatives who provides expertise in cultural narratives that we embed into our design process. Basically, we kind of like bounce around back and forth until we have an amazing outcome, which is just a short version of what we do. And I'll just hand back over to Paulette to talk about how we embed those values. So there's a process that we go through with our mana whenua panel, who have these 4 core values that they look at first, and then from that there's values that extrapolate out. So are you able to talk to those, Paulette?
Yeah, that's fine. So just as we get going, I just want to acknowledge the late Tahu Portaki, who was a local relation but a leader for our tribe, but at a local level as well. And so he helped us develop this framework with design, and we're a bunch of creative natives, and we do bounce a lot of things, build on ideas and concepts, but we are guided by this framework, and it's really made up of some core values, and they sit at the centre. So these 4 here, we talk about mana, whakapapa, mauri, and tapu. And so when we're considering each project, how does this project fit in relation to these values? And then, so that's sort of, I guess, the foundation that we build upon. And then we, again, everything is considered in its own location and its own life and right. And so we bring in other values to describe and so we build this, I guess, a narrative that then informs our artists. And so it's important that we have our, I guess, our cultural knowledge holders and at that table working with our artists. So these are fairly, those concepts, mana, whakapapa, tapu, mauri, are fairly well understood. But if you do have any questions, perhaps we'll have some time at the end of the presentation. So we're speaking, sorry.
Kia ora, Paula. Just, we've just forwarded around the presentation to all members, just so they can bring it up on their own screen and see it blowing up as well. So everybody, yeah.
Great. Oh, just feel free to read it at your leisure as we go, and we'll save the questions till the end, perhaps. So when we were considering, we're going into this specific project now, Aroha.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So when we were considering the challenge ahead, we of course we used this process, and these were the main themes that really sort of jumped out at us. And so mahika kai, I'm not sure how much you understand about kaitahu, but mahika kai is very important. It's a value, but it's a system, and it's a concept, and it's a way of life. So it has layers of meaning, but mahika kai for us was about our tribal economies. Our traditional tribal economy was built on mahika kai. So we had, food for sustenance, but also for trading, and that was fiercely protected and guarded. Certain areas that were harvested by certain families. So it was a very organised system. And of course, we know when you looked at that map and it had the tribal councils, those papatipu runaka, they are based on predominantly on the coast. And that was, for the purpose of these trading aspects to our lifeways. But the inland area, which today we refer to as tuawhenua, was an important part of our tribal estate. So there has been a narrative over previous generations where our people were described as hunters and gatherers, a nomadic lot that were just passing through places on their way to harvest the greenstone. But what we understand of ourselves is that is not a narrative that is accurately portrays our connection to places and spaces. So looking at, of course, the Mata'o and those rivers were our highways into the interior. And there are many, many places which we refer to today as nohoaka mahika kai, or destinations, places where over the generations we would continually visit, live at, and continue these traditional practices. So there we talked about the importance of tuna, which are our eels, both long fin and short fin. The kanakana are the lamprey eels, and weka are I think they call them the native wood hen, but they were everywhere. They were here on the coast, they were inland, they're fairly resilient manu, but they were an important part of our diet, and of course we traded with other nations. So that's a little bit about just some of the kai. There are many species and varieties of plants that we harvested as well. But we'll just go through kahua o te tau. And I mean, that's something that Central Otago today is renowned for, as the beautiful colours and the seasons. And for us, kahua o te tau, the seasons of the year were also important. So at this time of year, the harvesting of te koka. So we have there's two parts to the season in October and then later on in the summer months in February. But really over that period, October to March, we had plantations of te koka, of cabbage trees. It was another important part of our diet, the fructose that was extracted from those, a process of steaming, cooking the trunks and then preserving that food. And then in the autumn months, in the summer would be the tuna heke, which is when we have those tuna or those eels are in migration mode. They've gone through that metamorphosis and they're making their way out to the ocean to spawn in the Tongan trenches. And in the autumn was the time when the manu were the weka were the fattest. And so that was a time to harvest the weka. So you can see across all the seasons there are reasons for being in these places, and it was very organised. Like I said, quite a sophisticated system of a tribal economy. Mātauraka, this is an interesting one. We all have mātauraka. Mātauraka just means knowledge. Farmers bring knowledge, fishermen bring knowledge, and our people also bring knowledge too. So for us, mātauraka is something that is it is always growing. So it's intergenerational, and it's developed over time. And so when I'm thinking about our earliest people arriving into the South Island, and they discovered pounamu, and they adapted quite quickly to the resources that presented themselves here. And part of that mātauraka, I guess, when you're a part of your environment and it's so important to everything that you're doing, you are part of the environment, and so you are looking at those ecological indicators all the time, and part of that is reading the night sky. We embed our knowledge into everything around us, and so what might seem a fanciful pūrākau or a fable or a story or a narrative is actually a way of encoding and embedding our knowledge. And the more I learn about our language and the more I understand about our environment and the practices, those connections become so clear. Whakawhanaukataka, again, when I'm thinking about the traditional practice of te koka, extracting the fructose from those cabbage trees, it required quite a labour force, and our records give us the recipe for the extraction of the fructose, but they speak about a community that comes together for 3 months of the year, 3 to 6 months of the year, like a pop-up community, and it required they had these huge pits. They were, I think they said 20 chains long, 6 feet deep, and 2 human arm spans wide. So it's quite a big operation. And some of our records say it required a labour force of 200, but they came with their families as well. So there'd be children, grandmothers, grandfathers, a strong workforce, and a community that sort of comes together. And if any of you have had the privilege of enjoying a summer holiday camping by a river with family and friends, you create these enduring, lasting memories, attachment to those places, and connections with each other. And when that's strengthened through whakapapa or kinship, it becomes all the more meaningful. So we were thinking about these connections, these places that draw us together, and hopefully you'll see that threaded throughout this project. So I've spoken a little bit about that ara hono. Again, those the rivers were those arteries into the inland, and we even developed special vessels for navigating those rivers. And we do refer to them later on as ara tipuna, so intergenerational pathways. Kaitiaki taka, again, these resources, these areas, like today, as good responsible communities, we fiercely protect them. We don't want them polluted. We want to ensure that they are to be enjoyed and provide sustenance for future generations. So we did have quite some strong tikanga, or what would you call it, legislation or practice, rules regarding who has the rights to harvest and how things are to be harvested. And so that's all part of that responsibility. Wāhi tapu. So of course there are the easiest one. People always think tapu is forbidden, but it's actually it's a form of monitoring and making sure that we are looking after things. Sometimes, wāhi tapu are connected with burial sites, and there is an element of restriction. What you should and shouldn't do in those places of reverence, but also any wāhi tapu, when you're affording names of ancestors and you have that deep connection, or there are incidents or events, chapters of history that occur in those places, they do require, they do become a place of reverence, so they are treated as such. Whānau whānui, again, I think I've talked about that, about those communities coming together. And it's important to note that Tua Whenua area is an area that has been enjoyed by many hapu, or those sub-tribes that you'll see right from the south of the Waitaki right down to Murihiku into the deep south. And so again, those rivers that connect and join us were utilised by many family groups, many hapu. So whānau whānui really encompasses all of those relationships and interrelationships that we have across our region. Nō te onamata ki te anamata. So again, in everything that we're doing, and I know I have touched on it, we're always thinking about our past, what our ancestors, the great deeds of our ancestors, and the relationship that our ancestors had with the land, through to ourselves today in the present, and aspirationally what we want to see going forward for future generations. Right, Rākai Hautu. So this is a narrative that's shared across the whole region of Kaitahu, from the top of the south to the bottom. And so this ancestor, Rākai Hautu, was a great navigator. Our narratives tell us he comes from across the Pacific at a place called Patu Nui or Isle. And I guess he set out on this intrepid journey, loaded up his waka with his family. He had a seafaring. You might have seen the movie Moana, but it would have been loaded with family and resources from the previous homeland. And our narrative says he sailed past the top of the north, and saw that was populated up there. And he came to land, there's a couple of versions. One says he landed in the Nelson region at Whakatū. But my relations in Kaikoura will tell you that he landed closer to Kaikoura, but it's still up in that sort of top of the South Island area. So when he arrived, he divined that in this new land there would be, and this is a whakatauaki or a whakakiteka. He divined that there would be he puna waimaria, bountiful pools of bounty, so lakes full of abundance, full of food. He puna hauai too, which are those glacial fed lakes, and he puna karikari, which are pools dug by the hand of man. And we see those prophecies today with Lake Dunstan and other areas. But in our tradition, Rākai Hautu arrives. He actually throws the keys to the waka to his son, Te Raki Hauia, and they have an agreement that Te Raki Hauia and his wife, Tapuiti, they take the waka and they circumnavigate around the island to check out this new land. And Rākai Hautu, he takes another ahu or another group, and they traverse the land by foot. And as he goes, he has this famous digging implement called tū whakaroria. And with this implement, he shovels it into the ground and he creates, and he throws the soil behind him that shapes the landscape, our mountain ranges, and he creates these great lakes. So from Rotorua, Rotoiti, Takapō, Pūkaki, Ōhau, Hāwea, Wānaka, Whakatipu Wai Māori, which is like what's known today as Wakatipu, Whakatipu Wai Tai. There's so many places through to Te Amo, or Te Amao is our name, Moturau, which is Manapōuri, and back to Te Rotonui or Whatu, and Waihora here at Lake Waihola on the coast. So a lot of these features are attributed to the journey of Rākai Hautu across our whenua. And when we look inland to the beautiful landscape there, the Great Lakes, we're also reminded of, I guess, it is what we describe as the cradle of our creation narrative. And so when we look to those mountains where the water flows into those rivers, we come from those mountains. Those mountains are our ancestors, and our relationship and our whakapapa and our connection to these waters. So it's bringing in all that natural world into this physical human realm that we live within. So these stories are important to us, and we did sort of have a theme around Rākai Hautu, bringing the first people to this whenua. So they are the descendants of Te Kāhui Waitaha. So the Waitaha people, the earliest people, are the descendants of Rākai Hautu. And many of the names of those descendants are actually embedded in the landscapes in central Otago. Right. Ara tipuna, I think I've talked about this. Many places, certainly utilising the flow of the rivers, but there are other journeys through passes and over mountains, and they became the established routes, I guess, the more favoured routes, and they kind of make sense. A lot of our state highways are based on these ancestral routes as well, because of course they made sense. But also noting some of the early, I think one of the earliest Europeans to traverse the land, guided by our people and their hospitality, and Nathaniel Chalmers and those records speak about the navigating the harsh conditions, and I think his guides and our people were very kind and hospitable, and they created, I think he wore through his boots, and so they created some traditional custom made footwear for him. And there's lots of great stories about those, I guess that intersection when the first Europeans were being guided across our landscape by our people who knew their environment so well. Mau maharataka. So of course, it's just an inherent part of who we are. We're always remembering. And as one of our tribal statesmen, Sir Tipene O'Regan, reminds us, we must remember to remember. And it's through that we grow a greater sense of ourselves and remembering where we've come from, and hopefully that will inform good relationships going forward. So as I've spoken, it has been a wonderful opportunity for us to contribute our part in this project and bringing to light some of our earliest traditions, some of our earliest memories of our ancestors. We do have quite a wealth of written 19th century manuscripts, which we are very fortunate to have. And, our ancestors in 1840 were very keen on new technology, so much so that they became literate in a very short period of time. In fact, there are some written accounts that the people in Otago here in Dunedin, at Otago, sorry, had higher rates of literacy than the settler counterparts at the time, and we know that I guess the intergenerational, what we refer to today as te kreme, or the Ngaitahu claim, which was settled in 1998. That's 7 generations of written archives. And certainly in the 19th century, our ancestors took the opportunity to record a lot of traditional knowledge, a lot of these pūrākau or mythologies, and also there is historic accounts. I'm thinking of the Smith-Nairn Commission from 1879 to 1881, where there were all the senior leaders, the mahinga kai, or the food harvesting practitioners, were interviewed regarding the places and where they were harvesting those foods. So we have this incredible record of knowledge regarding the names of places, the types of resources that were found there, whether there are wāhi tapu, or whether there are burial sites or other aspects to these places. And these records have helped us to create our own Ngaitahu Atlas, which hopefully you're all aware of. It's accessible online, Ka Huru Manu. I think it's www.kahurumanu.maori.nz. And currently we have just over 1,500 names in our atlas. They're all our traditional names. We have around 6,000 in the database, and it's a very careful process of releasing those into the public domain, because we want to ensure that they are as authentic and underpinned by good research and our records, and it's up to the mana whenua, or those tribal authorities at place, to determine which are the most accurate and authentic to authorise in time. So I also hold the privilege of being the Te Rūnanga o Ngaitahu representative on the New Zealand Geographic Board. And in recent years, the Geographic Board have looked at this body of work, the Ngaitahu Atlas, and have considered it to be on par with our New Zealand Gazetteer. So a number of years ago, the board approved that Ka Huru Manu Atlas as an authoritative source of place names in New Zealand, which is very inspiring for us. we get asked a lot about even some of our children have Māori names, or our ancestors have names, and everybody wants to know what they mean. What does that mean? And in some places we do know, or we can assume meanings for places. Some places are a mystery, and they can be old ancient names that are brought from a distant homeland, as is the custom of naming. You bring names that remind you of your origins, and you layer them on the landscape. And so here, there's a little sample there of just a few of the place names in this region. But again, you'll be able to find a lot of these on the Kahuru Manu map if anyone has any questions. And this is just an example of some. I'm assuming, Aroha, that these are on the public facing domain, hopefully.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. And so when you go there, you'll see references as to where these place names have been recorded. Okay.
Kia ora. Shall I jump in?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. I just want to mihi to you, Paulette. That was amazing. It's always really interesting to hear and you explain the values in this way, and it always gives me new information and new mātaraka to take into my own brain cells, I suppose, and I just try and absorb all of that information. And luckily, this is being recorded so that we can listen back and remember those really interesting points that you've made. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the design aspects in this building. So we're starting here at the Memorial Garden. You guys are able to see this all right? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, thanks. We've got a copy of the presentation in the room as well, so thank you.
Awesome. Shall I keep going?
Yes, please.
Yeah, cool. So this space is the tapu space, tapu zone. It's a memorial space, and we're embedding those values of maumaharataka, whanaukataka, and wāhi tapu into this space. And a little bit, and te reo Māori. So you'll see here, there's a plan for an English name. There's also a plan for a reo name. So that's something in the pipeline that we'll be able to talk about at a later date. This memorial procession, so just before I start talking about all the design work, we have two amazing kaitahu artists who are working on this project. One is Vane Robinson, who is a master carver. He's based sometimes in Ōtautahi, sometimes in the West Coast. He's a bit of a mythological creature. It's really hard to get hold of him when I need to, but he does amazing mahi and is just an expert at what he does. So we've asked him to design some kawhaiwhai pattern, which goes on the procession down this pathway to the cenotaph. So this statue here, which has been shifted from the left-hand side of the building now to the right-hand side of the building. And this particular tohu that he's created, sorry, I'll go back, is acknowledging that story of Rakaihotu digging out those lakes. So there's within that kawhaiwhai pattern, you can see these little hands kind of digging out these lakes, and there's different waves and kind of, I don't know the word that I need right now, but yeah, you'll see what I mean when you see it. We've got a Y touch point which is being designed by Fane at the moment, and maybe Paulette, you want to jump in with some information or kind of mātaraka around the importance of water in this space?
Yeah, so if anyone has had an experience of attending one of our what we call our death ceremony or a tangihanga, takio, where there's I guess when you're in a state of sacredness or tapu, especially when there's in the realm of, I guess we separate our realms from the living and the dead, and so it is again a sacred element to this memorial site where we are remembering our loved ones who fought side by side. And I'm just thinking about we've got at our marae on the coast on the Otago Peninsula, our memorial site is a big stained glass window in our whare nui. And so the whare nui is a sacred site as well. But this particular feature, it's quite beautiful to see. We're inclusive of water, and I think it provides an opportunity for families that practice this particular ritual. We use water for cleansing or for stepping out of that sacred site and into back into the norm, if you like. So water has a purpose in that sense. It sort of lifts the tapu, or lifts that restriction so that you can go back into the world of the living. So it may not be important for everyone, but it's nice to have that included as a feature here for those that may wish to participate in that.
Thank you, Paulette. So there's just a little bit of information here around the memorial wall. So there will be the ode, which is written in English on one side, the traditional Anzac ode, and then that will be repeated on the other side in Te Reo Māori, but with kaitahu meter. So there's those dual languages on either side of that cenotaph in that area. Just a little bit about the entranceway. So this is a top-down view of the entranceway into the Cromwell Memorial Event Centre, or Cromwell Memorial Hall. I'm not sure what it's being called yet, but this is the entranceway here from this street along here. I can't remember the name of that street right now, I'm sorry. But this particular element flows in like the awa that are nearby. And we were definitely thinking about the confluence of those two awa meeting the mata-o and the kawarau arm that meet at that confluence just at the corner. This is just a render of the entranceway, which you may have seen in the last presentation. So this is an architect's render of how that a visual representation of Tu Whakaroria will look like. So this is a visual representation of Rakai Hautu's core, and that is sticking or piercing through the ceiling of that entranceway. It will be like a beacon of light. It's going to be lit up in the middle, and it's a statement of mana. It's quite an amazing thing to see this in a building, and to see that story of Rakai Hautu being embedded in the structure of the building. And here's just a little bit more of the design from Andre Tejera. So he's our other artist that we're working with. He's a graphic designer, kaitahu artist, and he has been collaborating with Fane on the outcome of this core. So these are not final designs, but it will be probably a bluish colour. There is this element here which is called a tika, which is a footrest, which is part of the core. And then along here there's some of these tohu which Andre has created based on the mahi kai that Paulette has been talking about. So there's the tuna, the kanakana, kōkupu, and yeah, based on those ara tipuna or ara tawhito, those traditional trails and pathways. Yeah, so that's just a little bit of Andre's design there. It's still a wee bit of design work left to go, but hopefully you can see the vision. Here's just another render of the auditorium entrance in the proscenium wall. So this is quite a massive room. I'm sure you guys have done a site visit and gone in there. It's quite impressive in terms of the size of it. With these particular cultural elements, Andre has created, so on those proscenium curved bits here on either side, framing that stage. These are called kao patterns. So they're a traditional carving pattern, which is like the ribs of a person or the ribs of a whare. And the meaning behind that is it's embracing of the community. So this is a really community-oriented space, and he's embedded those design works and traditional motifs in this space to embrace that community presence and feeling. In the glazing, there will be these mahi kai and aratipuna touches and references. These are still yet not finalised, but along here, an idea of potentially putting ropo. We also talked about tikoka as a visual reference and a kind of visual touch point or wayfinding device. And then Andre's also created these aratipuna pathway designs, which are like intersecting rivers and intersecting trails, which will be used throughout the entire building. Here's just another example of those. So these are these overlapping pathways on the right hand side here, and these are just some of the tohu which you will see embedded throughout the building and also throughout the museum, and potentially out in the landscape area as well. So these are different mahi kai icons which I was talking about before. So tuna, this is a kanakana mouth. So the lamprey has these kind of crazy sucky mouths which are pretty amazing, and they're like a prehistoric animal. I think I could go off on a rant, I'm sorry, I'll stop. But they're quite amazing animals, the kanakana or the lamprey, and then these waiwai footprints, which alluding to that mahi kai site and resource and space that was used for gathering those. So these will be embedded throughout the building, and then this is just the entranceway to the museum. Obviously it's a draft, but also Andre's been thinking about these ideas of so embedding that kao in here, but also these three kiti of knowledge. So thinking about this place, the whare tauka, we're not calling it that, but that's what it is. It's a place of tauka and mātauraka.
Treasures.
And treasures, yeah. And so these three kiti are alluding to the three kiti of knowledge that are in one of Purako in Te Ao Māori. And there I am at the pātai. There we go, we have 5 minutes spare. Are there any pātai that you want to ask Paulette or me? I reckon ask Paulette first because you guys can just email me.
Questions, people?
Hey, Pātai Tāku, you spoke about a tangata working group or panel early on. I just wanted to know more about how that was selected. How do you guys have that panel or working group that ultimately makes some of these decisions?
So the panel that informs the work are our cultural knowledge holders from across the Papatipu Rūnaka. And so, yeah, we've all been mandated by our respective rūnaka or hapu to provide the advice. Yeah.
So it's not like, so is there 5, like one from each rūranga, or is there multiple from rūranga? Just to get an understanding of it.
At the moment, there's a couple per rūnaka. Depends on who's available. But yeah, at the moment we've got representatives from Moeraki, Puketeraki, Otako. Yep.
Great, thank you.
Pardon? You go, Vic, yeah.
Is there any significance, the Māori battalion, is there any significance with that in our region?
Absolutely. A Māori battalion. So yes, definitely many of our ancestors served in both World War I and World War II. So the D Company, I think we speak of, but and then the can't remember the early my great grandmother's brother in World War I was part of the pioneer. I've just forgotten the name, sorry, but we certainly do have that's important to us today. Yeah.
And will they be acknowledged separately or together, or how? What are you thinking for that on the actual Cenotaph Memorial site?
I think it's a unified approach. I think having that ode in Te Reo Māori will be helpful on the day, because I know as a nation in many of the commemorations, the ode is given in both English and Te Reo Māori, and I guess the Te Reo Māori one's the less familiar one. So I think having that and just having those visual reminders or cultural tohu reminders ensures that it is interwoven into that space. So I don't think there's a need, well, I might be speaking out of turn, but I don't feel there's a need for anything to be separate. I think we're working together. Yeah. We fought together.
Here, the chief executive had a strong military background. So with the memorials up and down the military, so what they acknowledge is the campaigns that soldiers, sailors, airmen, airwomen served in. So this one goes back to the New Zealand Wars, right up to modern time, Afghanistan, Iraq. And so it doesn't, memorials don't specifically identify units, but they identify campaigns where New Zealand Defence Force personnel served in the units. So all the campaigns are reflected on the memorial.
Yep.
And certainly if you, those who attended the Remembrance Day service, all those campaigns were honoured at that service.
Great. Awesome.
I just want to reiterate that it's been a lovely journey seeing what you've put together and how it relates to how people interacted with the whenua and with the lakes and rivers of the mountains and used this place and travelled through, lived here, gathered kai, gathered resources, because it reminds us that the history of this place goes back further than, and I know that the museum is certainly looking at that as well, that taking the history right back to the formation of this land of it in that very long-term space in terms of it being this memorial space on a very significant position in Cromwell overlooking the lake there. So I think the way that you've woven in all of those high icons and brought probably a pūrākau that most of us weren't really familiar with to the forefront here is really interesting and that we can explore further as a community. So thank you for that.
That's right. I think just to make a comment, support all of that. I just touched lightly on the narrative of Rākai Hautu, and there are many layers to it. In fact, some of us believe it was a way of mapping out our eel fishery. So you'll find a lot of the place names on the coast are related to the eel weirs that were at those rivers, and of course the Great Lakes inland and many of the tributaries. But there are so many places you could go with this, and you could help to shape education curriculums relating to our natural environment, and there's so many places you could go with it. So
I haven't got any more questions around the room. I think that's been a really comprehensive look at the cultural narrative. For those of us who came to workshop a little while ago, you reiterated the stories, and it's been wonderful having you here to give some of that background to thinking and how this has come together and what's really important behind it. So we really appreciate your time today. And I know we'll all go away with lots and lots to think about. Thank you for sharing the presentation with us so we can go back into it and think about it further over time. So we're really looking forward to the moment where some of these elements start being visible within the building. Obviously, the code is there. We can see it sitting, waiting to be engaged. It's been a part of the building right from very early on in the construction. So we know it's coming. It's the marker is there. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having us.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. Cheers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ka kite.
Ka kite.
That clock is terrible. Isn't it? I know.